What happens when the internet's most strategic troll catches his rival on camera and presses upload? No warning, no filter, just hallway footage, a locked door, and one explosive kick heard across social media. Overnight, timelines were flooded, group chats were on fire, and hip-hop fans were asking the same question. Did 50 Cent just outplay JimJones in the most public way possible? Because this wasn't just another petty Instagram jab. This wasn't a subliminal. This wasn't even a diss track. And this was surveillance footage, time-stamped, crystal clear, and dropped with the kind of caption that makes you read it twice just to be sure. Was it business? Was it revenge? Or was it the most calculated viral moment of 2026? 1 minute, fans were debating podcasts and documentaries. The next, they were replaying a clip of a hallway confrontation like it was the season finale of a reality show nobody knew they were watching. And just when it looked like the narrative was sealed, a response hit the internet that flipped everything upside down. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't just drama, it's strategy, ego, timing, and a masterclass in turning controversy into clicks. The moment that footage hit the timeline, the story stopped being a petty back and forth and started feeling like something way bigger. This wasn't just two artists throwing shade in captions anymore. This looked strategic, calculated, almost cinematic. And the internet noticed immediately. Because when you see a hallway camera angle, a locked door, and a familiar face pacing back and forth before delivering that now viral kick, you don't just scroll past it. You pause, you replay, you zoom in, you start asking questions. And the first question everyone asked was simple: how did he even get that footage? That's where the whispers started. Some online commentators claimed the drop was too clean, too perfectly timed. And they pointed out that the timestamp was clear, the angles were multiple, and the caption was loaded with subtext. It didn't feel random. It felt prepared, like someone had been waiting for the exact right second to press post. And in the world of viral moments, timing is everything. Now let's be clear. Nobody is saying there was a secret command center with monitors and dramatic music playing in the background. But the way it unfolded, it felt like an episode of a streaming series. First clip, then another angle, then paperwork screenshots, then a photo standing next to the alleged building owner. Each upload escalated the narrative. Each slide added a new layer. And suddenly, what started as a hallway scuffle turned into a business chess move. The backstory matters here, because this didn't come out of nowhere. Months earlier, a comment on a podcast had set the tone. A documentary got criticized. Words like mockumentary were thrown around. And in hip-hop culture, disrespect doesn't evaporate. It simmers. It waits. It looks for opportunity. So when rumors began circulating about unpaid rent and lease disputes at the Bronx-based studio where the podcast was recorded, social media detectives connected the dots instantly. The narrative practically wrote itself. Criticize my work? Let's talk about your paperwork. Laugh at my documentary? Let's review your lease agreement. That's how the internet framed it. And whether that framing was fair or exaggerated didn't matter. What mattered was engagement. Screenshots of alleged notices floated around. Commentary channels dissected every line like it was a courtroom exhibit. Anonymous sources close to the situation began appearing in live-stream chats, claiming there had been tension behind the scenes for weeks. One self-proclaimed insider posted that the studio's management had been in intense negotiations since late last year. And another claimed the energy inside the building had shifted dramatically after the public jabs started. Of course, none of these sources were verified, but in the social media era, verification often arrives after virality, not before it. And virality was already in full effect. The footage itself became symbolic. People weren't just debating whether kicking the door was justified or not. They were debating what it represented. Was it frustration, defiance, or just someone trying to retrieve equipment after hours? The clip was short enough to invite interpretation, but dramatic enough to fuel imagination. That's the perfect recipe for controversy. Meanwhile, fans began resurfacing old interviews, past beefs, previous business ventures. They painted a picture of two personalities who have never exactly avoided confrontation. One side known for turning business disputes into public spectacles. The other known for leaning into chaos with charisma. And add a locked studio door into that mix, and you've got a storyline that practically markets itself. Then came the alleged ownership twist. When the post went up claiming partial ownership of the property, timelines exploded. Was this a flex, a bluff, a real estate power play? Comment sections filled with theories. Some argued it was the ultimate chess move, positioning one rival as landlord over the other. Others insisted it was trolling at a master level, because in hip-hop, perception is currency, and controlling perception can sometimes be more powerful than controlling property. What made it even more intense was the language used, playful on the surface, almost joking, but layered with just enough bite to sting. It's that casual delivery that makes it land harder. No yelling, no caps lock rage, just calm confidence. That tone alone shifted public opinion. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about a door, it was about dominance. Reaction channels jumped on it within hours. Analysts froze frames. Body language experts weighed in. Yes, actual body language experts on YouTube slowed the clip down to analyze posture and pacing. One claimed the kicks signaled controlled aggression. Another argued it looked more theatrical than angry. The internet turned into a courtroom and a comedy club at the same time. And while all of this unfolded publicly, and the bigger question lingered quietly beneath the memes. What was really happening behind closed doors before the camera caught that hallway moment? Because business disputes don't materialize overnight. Lease terminations involve paperwork. Negotiations involve calls. Deadlines involve warnings. If that notice truly expired weeks before the footage, then this wasn't spontaneous chaos. It was the climax of a long build. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as the footage painted one picture, a completely different narrative started brewing. Instead of retreating, instead of issuing a formal statement, instead of calling attorneys on Instagram Live, the response that came later that same day was unexpected. And that unexpected move didn't just defend against the narrative, it challenged it. Because sometimes in a public showdown, the winner isn't the one who drops the receipts. It's the one who controls the mood. And as the first wave of shock started settling, a second wave was quietly forming. A counter move, a tone shift, a reminder that humiliation only works if the other side accepts it. The internet thought it had reached the peak of the drama with that hallway footage. It hadn't, not even close. Because what happened next didn't erase the controversy, it reframed it. And that reframing is where this story stops being about a locked door and starts becoming something much bigger than anyone expected, which is exactly where part 2 begins. And that reframing is where part 2 begins, because instead of issuing a denial or scrambling into damage control mode, the response that hit social media later that same day flipped the entire atmosphere on its head. While critics were still dissecting hallway angles and debating lease clauses in comment sections, as a new clip surfaced. Same clothes, same boots, same energy. But this time the setting felt different, controlled, intentional, almost theatrical. The video showed exaggerated martial arts moves, dramatic chops, playful kicks, and a television screen glowing in the background with a classic martial arts film playing loudly enough to make the message unmistakable. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't apologetic, it was performance. And that performance immediately shifted the tone from scandal to spectacle. Within minutes, the nickname started trending. Memes multiplied. Edits flooded timelines. Instead of caught breaking in, the narrative became unlocked with style. That pivot was not accidental. In the world of viral controversy, speed matters. And the speed of that response suggested preparation, or at the very least, instinct sharpened by years in the spotlight. But here's where the so-called investigative layer deepens. Because behind the humor there were whispers of something more calculated. Anonymous accounts claiming to be close to the studio alleged that the footage release had been anticipated. One comment from a supposed insider claimed, "They knew something was coming. Nobody moves that fast unless they were expecting a play." Was that true? There's no confirmed evidence, but the speculation alone fueled engagement. Meanwhile, the alleged financial details began circulating again. Numbers resurfaced. Old figures were reposted. Claims of six-figure arrears were amplified by commentary channels that cited unnamed property management sources. One livestream host insisted he had seen documentation proving months of delayed payments. Another claimed a partial transfer had been made weeks earlier to quiet the noise. None of these claims were verified through official filings. But in the court of public opinion, the repetition feels like confirmation. Then came the lavish angle. Online gossip blogs began suggesting that while rent disputes allegedly loomed, high-profile appearances and luxury lifestyle posts continued uninterrupted. Photos of designer outfits, private flights, and VIP sections were reposted with sarcastic captions asking, "But the rent, though?" Again, no concrete evidence tied spending habits directly to the lease issue. But perception does not wait for spreadsheets. It runs on optics. One anonymous commenter claiming to work in commercial real estate posted a lengthy thread explaining how termination notices work in New York. He described cure periods, legal lockout procedures, and the difference between informal lock changes and marshal-enforced evictions. He ended the thread with a dramatic line. "This story isn't over. Not legally." That sentence alone was screen-recorded and reposted across platforms, giving the impression that official consequences were imminent. At the same time, speculation about the alleged ownership claim intensified. When the photos surfaced showing a friendly stance next to the building's reported owner, social media detectives went into overdrive. Some insisted public property records would soon reveal a transfer of interest. Others argued it was a psychological tactic, not a legal one. One viral tweet read, "You don't need to own the building to own the narrative." That tweet gained thousands of likes, because it captured the essence of what viewers were witnessing. And let's talk about narrative ownership, because that's really what this became. Every post was a chess move: drop footage, attach notice, hint at partnership, issue playful threat, watch reaction, counter with humor, tease upcoming content. This wasn't chaotic, it was layered. Imaginary sources began giving colorful commentary. A self-proclaimed former employee allegedly told a blog, or there's always been tension over creative control and finances. The hallway incident was just the spark. No outlet verified the identity of this so-called employee. Yet the quote traveled as if it were sworn testimony. Public reaction fractured into camps. One side argued the footage proved recklessness and disrespect for contractual boundaries. The other insisted it showed resilience in the face of provocation. Reaction videos leaned heavily into sarcasm. Is this a studio dispute or the pilot episode of a new reality series? One YouTuber joked while replaying the clip in slow motion with dramatic sound effects. Then came the so-called leaked group chat screenshots. Unverified images circulated claiming to show tense exchanges about overdue balances and studio access. The authenticity of those screenshots was never confirmed. Fonts didn't quite match standard messaging apps. Timestamps seemed inconsistent. But that didn't stop them from spreading like wildfire. Because once a story gains momentum, anything that appears to support it sticks. Some commentators took it further, alleging abuse of power. They framed the ownership claim as intimidation. They questioned whether leveraging business ties in a public feud crossed ethical lines. Again, no formal complaints or filings backed those claims, but the language escalated. Words like retaliation and coercion began appearing in captions. And with every dramatic term, engagement climbed. On the flip side, Defenders argued this was nothing more than savvy entrepreneurship. "If you can buy the building, buy it," one podcast host laughed during his recap. "That's not abuse, that's capitalism." That clip also went viral because controversy thrives on polarity. As days passed, the internet waited for official paperwork to surface. Would there be a lawsuit, a court date, a press conference? Instead, what appeared publicly were more posts, more jokes, more subtle jabs. The absence of formal escalation almost made the drama louder, because unresolved tension keeps audiences hooked longer than quick resolution. And through all of this, the most fascinating layer was the transformation of embarrassment into branding. The martial arts parody wasn't just humor, it was strategic distraction. It shifted the conversation from least compliance to personality performance. It reframed the hallway moment as cinematic rather than criminal. That shift protected image equity, at least temporarily. Meanwhile, alleged behind-the-scenes talks reportedly continued. A gossip page cited a source familiar with negotiations, claiming temporary access agreements were being discussed. Another claimed insurance adjusters had been contacted regarding door repairs. None of these reports were substantiated with documents, but they kept the story alive. And financial analysts on commentary streams speculated about potential fallout. Could sponsors distance themselves? Would advertisers hesitate? Could a studio relocation become necessary? These were hypothetical scenarios, not confirmed developments. Yet they added weight to the narrative, creating the impression of looming consequences. And that looming feeling is where this story intensifies. Because when public spectacle meets potential legal exposure, tension multiplies. The memes may fade, but contracts don't. The humor may trend, but property law doesn't laugh. As speculation swirled and anonymous quotes multiplied, one thing became clear. This was no longer just about a viral clip. It was about leverage, optics, and who could sustain public pressure longer without blinking. The hallway kick may have ignited the blaze, but the strategic responses poured gasoline on it. And just when audiences thought they had seen every angle, the conversation began shifting again. Not toward jokes this time, but toward consequences. Because behind every sensational post lies a simple question that refuses to disappear. What happens next when the cameras stop rolling? That's the question hanging in the air as we move into the final phase of this unfolding saga. That's the question hanging in the air as we move into the final phase of this unfolding saga. Because when the memes slow down and the reposts start thinning out, reality has a way of stepping back into the room. And reality does not care about punchlines. It cares about paperwork. It cares about liability. It cares about who technically had the right to be where when that door was kicked open. Behind the viral edits and sarcastic commentary, legal analysts began weighing in more seriously. Several online commentators who claimed to have backgrounds in commercial tenancy law suggested that if a lease had truly been terminated, the proper eviction process would require formal court involvement before access could be denied or reclaimed. Others countered that once default deadlines expire, landlords can begin enforcement actions swiftly. The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle, but the lack of publicly filed court documents only added to the suspense. Rumors started circulating that private mediation might be underway. A popular gossip livestream host claimed that representatives on both sides had lawyered up quietly and were exploring settlement options behind closed doors. No documentation supported that claim. No attorney statements were issued publicly. Yet the rumor gained traction because it felt plausible. In high-profile disputes, silence often means conversations are happening somewhere else. Speculation about potential criminal exposure also began trending in comment sections. Could property damage charges be filed? Could civil claims for repairs escalate into a lawsuit? Legal experts online were careful to note that viral footage does not automatically equal criminal conviction. Intent matters, Ownership matters. Lease status matters. But in the world of internet commentary, nuance rarely travels as far as outrage. Meanwhile, financial analysts who cover entertainment ventures began questioning the long-term impact on the studio's operations. But if access were truly restricted or complicated, could production schedules suffer? Would co-hosts like Dave East or Mayo seek alternative recording locations to avoid further disruption? Anonymous insiders posted that contingency plans were already being drafted. Again, none of this was confirmed. But the idea of internal scrambling made the situation feel bigger than a hallway scuffle. Then came the alleged sponsor angle. A blog post from an unverified outlet claimed that certain brand partners were monitoring the situation closely. No brands publicly withdrew support. No sponsorship cancellations were officially announced. Yet that single sentence about monitoring added another layer of pressure. Because in the entertainment business, perception affects partnerships, and partnerships affect revenue. The ownership claim continued to hover like a cloud over everything. Without public deeds or filings confirming a formal transfer, the statement about partial ownership remained strategically ambiguous. Some observers argued that ambiguity was the point. By leaving it unverified but visible, the narrative created psychological leverage without requiring immediate documentation. Others insisted that if the claim were real, property records would eventually confirm it. Until then, it functioned as both flex and mystery. Public opinion remained sharply divided. Supporters on one side praised the move as a masterclass in strategic trolling, arguing that business dominance is the ultimate form of hip-hop warfare. Critics argued that leveraging property disputes for public humiliation crossed ethical lines. The debate extended beyond the individuals involved and into broader conversations about power dynamics in the industry. At the same time, the so-called hallway incident continued generating derivative content. Comedians reenacted the scene. The TikTok creators added dramatic music and slow-motion effects. Even parody news accounts wrote fictional breaking updates, claiming the door had signed its own press release. Humor, as always, diluted severity, but it did not erase the underlying questions. There were also whispers of potential regulatory interest. A niche legal commentary page speculated that city authorities could examine whether proper eviction procedures were followed if access was restricted without court orders. And no official city statements supported that speculation. But the idea of government involvement injected fresh tension into the storyline. Some online financial bloggers suggested the dispute could signal deeper strain within independent media ventures operating in expensive urban markets. Rising commercial rent, inconsistent ad revenue, and public feuds create volatile environments. While this broader analysis shifted focus away from personal drama, it framed the conflict as symptomatic of a larger industry issue. Still, the personalities at the center kept the spotlight anchored. Neither side appeared to retreat fully. Subtle posts continued. Indirect references surfaced. Each new upload reignited comment threads, dissecting tone and subtext. It became less about one viral moment and more about sustained narrative endurance. Then there were the so-called resignation rumors. An anonymous forum post alleged that someone affiliated with studio management was considering stepping away due to unwanted attention. No names were attached. No confirmations followed. But in high-visibility disputes, even anonymous claims can create ripples. Financial crisis speculation also began trending. Could extended disputes disrupt cash flow? Would relocation costs strain budgets? Commentators floated hypothetical figures estimating potential losses if production halted for weeks. And these numbers were theoretical, not based on disclosed financial statements. Yet they contributed to an atmosphere of looming consequence. As days passed without formal legal filings surfacing publicly, some viewers began questioning whether the drama had peaked. Others argued the calm before paperwork is often deceptive. In business disputes, legal action can take time to materialize. And until statutes of limitation or official notices appear, uncertainty lingers. One recurring theme in online analysis was the distinction between viral justice and legal justice. Viral justice happens instantly, driven by perception and engagement metrics. Legal justice unfolds slowly, governed by procedural requirements and documentation. The hallway clip satisfied the first. The second remains unresolved. The fascinating element is how both sides managed to maintain their brand identities throughout. One continued projecting strategic dominance, yet the other leaned into humor and resilience. Neither publicly displayed panic. That composure alone kept audiences speculating. Because in high-stakes disputes, visible fear often determines public winners, and fear was conspicuously absent. As we stand now, the situation feels suspended. No confirmed lawsuits, no verified criminal charges, no public property transfers documented in widely reported filings, just layers of narrative, speculation, and strategic silence. It's possible that private agreements have already resolved the matter quietly. It's equally possible that formal proceedings are being prepared away from cameras. What makes this saga compelling isn't just the footage, it's the interplay between spectacle and substance, between social media theater and contractual reality, between humiliation attempts and branding pivots. Every move generated reaction. Every reaction generated revenue through clicks and commentary. And perhaps that's the most revealing takeaway. In the digital era, controversy itself becomes currency. Even potential fallout becomes content. Hypothetical probes become headlines. Anonymous sources become plot devices. The audience becomes jury, analyst, and promoter all at once. So what happens next? Will official documents surface confirming or denying the ownership claim? Will any civil action clarify whether the hallway incident carries legal weight? Or will production continue uninterrupted, proving the entire saga was more performance than peril? Or will a delayed filing suddenly shift everything from viral spectacle to courtroom reality? For now, the cameras have stopped capturing hallway kicks, but the narrative hasn't closed. It's paused. And in the world of high-profile rivalries, a pause often means preparation. Whether that preparation leads to settlement, escalation, or simply the next viral moment remains to be seen. So, what do you think? Was this just a hallway scuffle blown out of proportion, or are we witnessing a masterclass in social media chess and power plays? Who really came out on top here? 50 Cent with his strategic landlord flex, or JimJones turning humiliation into a viral persona? And what's next for the IFC factory and the podcast crew? Continued chaos, secret deals, or a quiet resolution we'll never see? The truth is, in this world of viral feuds, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. And the story is still unfolding. If you want to keep up with every twist, every drop, and every viral moment before it hits the mainstream, make sure you hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more investigative breakdowns of the drama the internet can't stop talking about. Trust me, you do not want to miss the next chapter.